We're so glad to have you here with us today. My name is Susan McGuire, and I'm Manager of Professional Development here at ACCE. And I'm happy to welcome you to this webinar on Now What you and your chamber need to know about social media. We are very happy to have here with us this afternoon Pennsylvania State Representative Mike Schlossberg, who is a nationally recognized expert in the field of social media and politics and a former chamber executive. And he will help us understand the most effective strategies for social media success. So we're very lucky to have him with us today. Before we get started, I just wanted to cover a few housekeeping matters. First, please remember to place your phone on mute to avoid background noise. We appreciate that. Second, we will have some time for questions at the end of the webinar. So if you have any questions, please ask them using the question function of the webinar. The question box is on the lower right-hand corner of the screen. Just type in your question, and we here at ACCE will see them and then ask Mike the questions when we get to the end of the presentation. And third, this webinar is being recorded, and it should be up on the ACCE website within the next couple days. We'll also have Mike's presentation materials for download as well. So please look for those on our website in the next day or so. So with that, I'd like to introduce our presenter. Mike is the former Vice President of Member Relations and Applied Technology for the Greater Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania Chamber of Commerce, where he created and operated the Chamber's social media presence. He is currently a Pennsylvania State Representative and a social media consultant. Mike recently published his first book entitled Tweets and Consequences, 60 Social Media Disasters in Politics and How You Can Avert a Career-Ending Mistake. And that can be purchased on Amazon. So today, Mike is going to help us understand the most effective strategies for social media success, provide an insider's view of current social media trends, and share sample ideas for content that you can use to benefit your chamber and your community. So with that, Mike, thanks again for being there, and take it away.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for that kind introduction. Hello, everyone. I think we've got pretty close to 100 folks on the call today, and that's always fun. As Susan was kind enough to say, I'm currently a Pennsylvania State Representative, but in my past life, I served as an executive with the Greater Lehigh Valley Chamber of Commerce, regional chamber in eastern Pennsylvania. So coming back and doing a chamber presentation is always fun for me. It always kind of feels like coming home. Since my election in the House of Representatives, I've remained very active in the social media world, and my goal today is to kind of give that bird's eye view of social media for you folks. Let you know who's using what networks are kind of rising and becoming more popular to the point that you might want to consider paying attention to them, and give a broad view of content. I will say that when I give my presentations, generally speaking, I found that the most useful part easily is when folks actually ask questions. Typically, that's what generates a lot of additional conversation and discussion. So as you have questions, I encourage you to ask them. So that would be good. I would also say please tweet me at Mike Schlossberg. I see that at least one person is already doing so with an audio question. It looks to me like everything's coming out okay in the audio. Susan, can you folks hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Okay. I'm not sure what that's about. Well, if anybody else is having audio questions, please give me a tweet, and that might just be that one person. I'm going to hope that's what that is. And
you do. Everyone does need to call in the number provided at the webinar in order to hear.
Okay, great. Great, yeah, that's a good point. All right, well, why don't we get started? And like I said, please submit your questions or shoot me a tweet as you have anything that comes up. First, let's just give a kind of the really broad view of how big social media has become lately. And I want to emphasize this is a rising number. Every time you think that social media use is maxed out, it keeps rising. Social media about 5 or 6 years ago became the #1 internet activity. 28% of all time on the internet, somebody is using some form of social media. That number is about 1.5 hours every day for the average internet user. In terms of social media's effect on e-commerce, you've seen Facebook and Twitter start to roll out buy now buttons, so they're further integrating social media and e-commerce. $8.5 billion is spent on social media advertising. That number is going to close to double in the next 3 years. So clearly a pretty enormous number. In terms of purchasing pattern, e-commerce is going to outpace brick and mortar by 2017. Now, for more traditional Chamber of Commerce's, I know that's a little bit frightening. I mean, you are going to have to move away from cash in the envelope to a more digital presence, but this has become the expectation. And frankly, in terms of mobile processing, there's no excuse anymore not to have a Square or some sort of payment that allows you to take payment by a telephone or an iPad. Half of all social media-related purchases happen within a week of interacting with a product or a brand, which means you need to be in somebody's face if you want to expect any sort of immediate returns. In terms of refers, Facebook is number one. Facebook is number one far and away. But Pinterest, Twitter, and YouTube are also pretty high in terms of referrals. Now, in terms of some of the user demographics, this can be particularly important when you're trying to figure out where to put your limited time. It goes without question that Facebook is the king of the social media universe, has been for some time, and certainly will be for the foreseeable future. More Facebook users are women than men. It has a heavier penetration among folks on the lower end of the income scale as well as education, and it has a heavier urban penetration than it does compared to suburban or rural users. Age is heaviest among 64 or younger. Now that's obviously very broad, but there's an important but to that. The only area where Facebook is actually losing ground is among younger users, 24 and younger. Those users are going to other networks that I'm going to talk about. And that's a very important consideration in the long term, and also if your chamber is trying to make a push in the area of young professionals. In terms of LinkedIn, obviously it's the work-related social network, so it's going to skew towards college or higher and the urban-suburban realm. Also skews towards men. It's one of the few social networks that actually does have more men than women. Income is obviously high. Users are largely white, although it's higher among African Americans than it is among Hispanics. And the age is kind of what you'd expect in that professional range, 30 to 64. Now, Pinterest. Pinterest is a picture-centric network that tends to skew towards food and retail and art. Obviously, as you would imagine, huge skew towards women over men, as well as high household incomes, typically people with disposable income. This is one of the reasons that Pinterest was so high in terms of being a top e-commerce referrer, because it tends to target people who have higher incomes. And as you would expect, matching the rest of the demographics of the country, the users are largely suburban and are mostly white. Now, in terms of Instagram, if you are targeting minority users, Instagram is actually the place to be. 34% of African Americans use Instagram, 23% of Hispanic, and just 12% of whites. Now, that's as a percentage of overall Internet users. So that's not to say that there are more African Americans or Hispanics on Instagram than there are whites, but it does show that there's a higher overall percentage. The users are younger. They're 29 or younger, mostly, with a heavier penetration among 18 and younger. Urban and suburban mostly. Rural users are almost non-existent, and majority female, low-income households. And then, of course, there's Twitter. Twitter, again, does very well in the African-American population compared to Hispanics and whites. It's actually got a pretty even distribution in terms of education and gender, more urban and suburban than rural, and a tilt towards higher income households. So I would guess that that probably matches a lot of Chamber of Commerce demographics. Now, in terms of growth, this is the 2014 annual Pew Survey report on growth in social networks among the major networks. Facebook, as you can see, has plateaued. Now, that being said, 71% of all Internet users are on Facebook. I mean, that's just a monster of a number. So while the growth is technically, quote-unquote, plateaued, that's okay. Instagram, Pinterest, and LinkedIn are accelerating. They're accelerating rapidly. If you look at their growth, their growth is being outpaced by Twitter. A recent survey actually, or is outpacing Twitter, excuse me, with a recent survey showing that Instagram has more active monthly users than Twitter does. Instagram, I get the distinct impression, is largely a forgotten social network because there's a lot of users who are younger and thus maybe not necessarily as adaptive to Chamber of Commerce or as friendly to Chamber of Commerce audiences as other networks. That being said, if you've got the time, I would definitely recommend investing in, if you're on Facebook and Twitter already, go with Instagram as well, because this is a place where I think you're going to see more growth. Remember, Facebook and Twitter started out for younger audiences. That's the stage of growth that Instagram's at. It's going to overlap into older audiences shortly. Now, in terms of mobile devices, I don't want to go through each and every one of these statistics specifically, but 58% of Americans have a smartphone. 29% of Americans cannot imagine living without their phone. I'm probably like at least 15% of those personally, and I suspect a lot of you are as well. But we're becoming a phone-dependent society. That does have implications for your chamber. In 2014, mobile use of the Internet overtook traditional desktop use, which means that if your website isn't mobile-friendly, hang up the phone, exit the webinar, call a website designer, and get your website mobile-friendly. If you get nothing else out of this, your website needs to be mobile-friendly. A majority of Internet use comes from a phone or a tablet rather than a desktop right now, and people expect to be able to have smooth interaction with a website regardless of the device at this point. I will also add that there's some statistics that would sort of imply that you really should be looking at apps. People do use mobile websites, but 80 to 90% of Internet use comes from an app as opposed to from a browser, which means that it really may be worth making an investment into an app. Now, in terms of some of the rising networks, we already touched on Instagram a little bit. As I said before, Instagram is a picture-friendly network. You can add little filters to it, captions, hashtags. It's owned by Facebook. It also integrates easily with other networks. You can make a post on Instagram and then push it out to a couple of other networks that you're in. Again, the audience is young, and that's okay with Chambers for two reasons. First, you are probably trying to get out of the traditional white 50-year-old male audience, which is what Chambers tend to concentrate in. And if you're anything like the chamber I used to work for, this is something that you need to do. You need to go with a younger audience, and Instagram is definitely at that place. I will also add that it's just good to be an early adapter. Now, obviously, this comes down to time and resources, but if you've got somebody who can take pictures and regularly update Instagram, I definitely think it's worth it. Vine. Vine is a 6-second video that loops nonstop. The company is owned by Twitter, so it easily integrates within the Twitter timeline. Actually, it plays automatically. You can also integrate it with other networks as well. Instagram also has video uses. You can film up to a 30-second video with Instagram. Vine is really Twitter with video. The thing about Twitter, obviously, is you have that 140-character limit that dramatically limits what you could say. Vine is the exact same thing. It forces your message to be brief and punctual. You can also edit clips pretty easily. There's, pro uses of Vine, but it's just a matter of clicking your screen in order to edit a clip. The biggest audience, again, is young. I think Instagram has more staying power than Vine, but Vine is so easy and frankly it's a lot of fun that I think it's well worth using. Now, going back to Pinterest for a second, if you have a chamber that tends to concentrate on retail or food, or if you have a restaurant council or a retail council, something like that, Pinterest can be extremely useful. Again, its slant is heavily towards women, and it's also got a lot of e-commerce integration. It's one of the top referrers in terms of social networks to e-commerce. If you are trying to find a way to help your retail or your restaurant members, a Pinterest site is a good way to go because that's where so much content comes from on Pinterest. Okay, Snapchat is a little bit more complicated. Snapchat is a messaging service like Kik or Whisper. There's a lot of different versions of it. It's kind of like a text message, but you can send a picture or a video and add some text to it. The message then will self-destruct. It'll delete. There won't be any record of it per se. So 60% of the users are very young, 18 to 24, probably even a little bit young for your chamber to take advantage of. However, just like all of these networks, they're starting to shift older, and a lot of brands are starting to use Snapchat. Brands are then using Snapchat to communicate with their audiences, which does beg the question, is there a way that your chamber can use brands to target their audiences as well? I actually think the possibility is there, maybe not just yet, it's still pretty early on the early adapter curve, but it is something to keep an eye on. Meerkat is so new, it literally came out a week ago, or really started getting publicity, I should say, about a week ago, and it's something that it's super early, but given the amount of stories that have popped up about it, I think it's worth paying attention to. Meerkat is actually an app. It's an app that allows you to stream live video from your phone, and you can then schedule and you could schedule a live update to occur at a later date, and then it will tweet to all your followers when you start streaming. There's a lot of uses for that. You could potentially stream events. You could stream press conferences, messages from chamber businesses or volunteers. There's a lot of different ways that you can take advantage of it. And there's so much chatter about it, it makes me wonder if this isn't the next big thing. What we are definitely seeing, and I'll talk about this later in the presentation, is an increased reliance on video, and specifically on video over pictures or text. Facebook has shifted their algorithm so that video does better. Facebook is actually in some ways challenging YouTube. It's become the second largest uploader of video in the entire world, and challenging YouTube and trying to break into their dominance. And as a result, that's what Facebook does, skews other networks. So the more video there is, the more Facebook relies on video, the more important video becomes. And again, Meerkat isn't something you need to jump on right now, but it's something worth keeping an ear to the ground on. Some of the other emerging networks, these have even less mainstream appeal, I would say, than some of the other ones I talked about. There is Medium, which was founded by the same people who founded Twitter. It's a blog, and it's a blog that kind of runs in a newsfeed format that can then be shared and retweeted in a similar manner to Twitter. Posts can be upvoted. If you blog, it might be worth checking out Medium. Again, it doesn't have that widespread appeal yet as other blogging platforms like WordPress or Blogger or anything like that have, but it is very much worth keeping an eye out on. You'll hear me say that a lot. Ello made a big splash a few months ago. It's ad-free and it's invite-only. It's been somewhat quiet since. You can't get in unless you get invited by somebody. I do have invites if anybody wants. But it has not come even close to reaching that mainstream appeal yet. Ello is like the anti-Facebook. Every time you log into Facebook, you just see ads galore. Ello is a reverse target of that. You could do it for free. There will never be any ads. Any money that they make, if they ever become profitable, will be from people paying for additional options on their profiles. I don't know whether or not it's actually going to make it or not, but it made such a splash a few months ago that I definitely thought it was worth mentioning. Then there are these secret networks that I mentioned before, things like Secret or Whisper, which allow for the anonymous sharing of pictures and text. The only reason I'm mentioning it, because I don't think there's any business application whatsoever, is for those of you out there who have kids. Frankly, Whisper and Secret and the apps like that scare me from a cyberbullying perspective, because you can make boards and pages, and it can become very easy to anonymously lob insults at somebody else. So if you are parents out there, keep an eye on that one. Now, touching on some of the specific content that you can use as a chamber. As I mentioned before, video is important. Video does better than links, pictures, or plain text at getting Facebook impressions. The more video you can use, the better your page will perform. In terms of specifics, tips of events, smiling, happy people, everybody enjoying themselves and networking, I wouldn't go too overboard with quality. I think that we've reached an age with video on social networking that nobody expects a fully edited production. What people do expect is functionality, to be able to see and hear things appropriately. It doesn't matter if the camera's a little shaky. It doesn't matter if all the shots aren't perfect. But just make sure people can get an idea of what you're going for before you upload a video to your page. Testimonials from members, how much they've gotten out of the chamber. Doing that periodically isn't bad. Updates from your council presidents. I have always said that when it comes to social media content, the most important thing is that it be member-oriented for chambers. You don't want to overuse social media to talk about yourself, because nobody cares. Nobody cares about you. They only care about you in what you can do for them. So every ounce of your content has to be member-centric. So coming back to video, if you're going to do an update from a council president, make sure they talk about what the council is doing in the community and for their member businesses. I will also add, and this is something I had luck with when I was at my chamber, you can use your video, your YouTube things for sponsorship opportunity. So let's say you do a regular weekly video that kind of talks about some of the things you have coming down the pike. You can make a sponsorship agreement where you can have a sponsor give a 10-second message in front of every video and put their logo in the bottom right-hand part of the corner. That's an easy few bucks, especially if your videos actually do well. As videos have become more popular with Facebook, I think this is a really, really useful thing to do. That is what I was just talking about, this week's video. When I was with my chamber, we called it This Week with Tony after our CEO, Tony Iannelli, and he would be on. It eventually became This Week with Mike, given his schedule, but I would talk about events that were coming down the pike, important things that were occurring in the Lehigh Valley region. We would sometimes have other members on, other staffers to discuss their initiatives, and we also sold sponsorships for it, so it was a great way of driving revenue. Upload contents to every one of your available networks. It can be a little bit annoying. I will also add that frequently you have to customize the content and how you actually display it. So I'll use Instagram as an example. People use hashtags like crazy on Instagram, which is fine. You know, you can use 5 or 6 hashtags on Instagram and it doesn't really look too stupid. Twitter, you usually don't want to use 1 or 2. Facebook, same applies. You can upload the same content to multiple platforms, but don't just automatically integrate your Facebook and your Twitter. Take the time to put up 2 different messages, because it's sort of like uploading to Facebook and Twitter at the same time is like speaking the way I'm speaking right now in America and England. They might get a gist of what I'm saying in England, but given the different meanings of some words, some things are going to be lost in translation. So it's worth taking that extra time. Coming back to pictures, same applies as before, but interestingly enough, according to the same survey that I discussed about video, the same rules actually apply to Facebook as well, or to pictures, in that the same survey showed that pictures are doing the worst in terms of Facebook impressions, worse than not only video, but regular text and links. So it's always important to go back to your own analytics, check your own data to see how your pictures are doing compared to other items, but that's something to keep an eye on for sure. As I said, you want your content to be member-centric. To that end, some specific member-centric content ideas. Have a member of the day. So this is something that I did at my chamber for free. Somebody emails me and says, hey, Mike, I'm looking to promote this event. Okay, great. They give me the event that they're looking to promote. I put out a Facebook status, a tweet on the top of our blog, in our LinkedIn group. Today's member of the day is Gym Spa, which is giving half off on massages tomorrow. Great free way of being member-centric. I will add that not only is it good for Gym Spa to do something like that, but it's good for all of your members to see that there are these free ways of gaining a lot of publicity. That's something that is always a place. That's where your chamber should always be, being viewed as not a money-making machine, but trying to help its members as much as possible. Member takeover. Let your members take over your social media for the day. Give them access. Have them, sit there with them, obviously, but give them full reign and let them tweet and self-promote to a limited extent and have a conversation with other people. It can be fun and interesting to hear a new voice. Again, always do this with supervision. Guest blog entry. If you run a blog, allow somebody to write, say, 500 words on an area of their expertise in which they give advice and tips. Give them a limited opportunity to promote themselves, obviously their name, their logo, a link, but the point of this guest blog entry should be about how members can demonstrate that they are experts and give away free advice and gain a little bit of promotion accordingly. If a member has something really good you want to retweet or share, do it. Let them know. You're probably going to have a bigger social media audience than most of your member businesses. So just do it. Be nice, and then say to all your members, hey, do you have something cool you want to share? Let us know. Welcome new members. Tag them on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram as they join. If you've got a new brick-and-mortar business, take a picture of their storefront or their logo, upload it to Instagram or to Facebook. Make sure you really go out of your way to welcome new members to show that you are a welcoming, friendly chamber. As members have job openings, advertise them. That will also steer a lot of additional traffic to your social media if you get a good reputation as announcing job openings. That's something that you really can't go wrong with. All right. Now, that is about all that I have. This is my contact information. This is how you can email me. I know all the information is going to be on the website and recording, but if you would like me to send you the slide deck, you could do it that way. Blatant self-promotion. I just published a book on social media called Tweets and Consequences, which details when politicians and government have royally screwed up social media and what you can learn to avoid making their mistakes. That is all that I have in terms of a planned presentation, but I am more than happy to take any questions on Twitter, or you can submit them through the webinar, and I will answer them that way. So Susan, I will turn it back over to you for any questions we got.
Thanks so much, Mike. I really appreciate your interesting presentation, and it looks like we have a question here. How do you feel about aggregators such as TweetDeck or Hootsuite?
I am a big fan of both, and I will show you what a big fan I am. This is my Hootsuite feed. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar, let me just take a minute to explain this. Hootsuite and TweetDeck they're called aggregators in that they put all of your social media in one place. They are free to a point. You can then, what you're looking at right now is my personal Hootsuite. Anytime anybody has tweeted at me, tweets that I've sent, and then over this way, to the right, I have specific search terms. So I'm a Pennsylvania politician, so I have PA politics. Anytime anybody tweets the title of my book, then I can keep an eye out on that. Social media things, anytime anybody tweets up my blog URL. Doing something like that will help you keep track of all of your tweets. I will add that in my book where I talk about disaster things that people have done on Twitter, a good chunk of the mistakes were made by people messing up Hootsuite or TweetDeck. Because you can tweet from this top portion right here, but if you click the wrong account, you can send out an account from your business Twitter account that you meant to send out from your personal account. One of the more famous events where that happened was something that the Red Cross did 5 or 6 years ago, where the person managing the Red Cross's Twitter account was using Hootsuite and tweeted out, I can't wait to get Dog's Head Beer, #getting slizzard, and tweeted it. They meant to tweet it from their personal Twitter account. They actually tweeted it from the Red Cross's Twitter account. So it looked like the Red Cross was tweeting out about how excited it was to get drunk on a Friday night. Now, they deleted the tweet, explained what had happened. It turned into a big boon because Dog's Head Beer caught the tweet. They got some exposure and said, hey, everybody who retweets that, we're going to give $10 to the Red Cross. And it wound up being a win for everybody. But there's also times where things like that have ended terribly and people have lost their jobs. So if you're going to use Hootsuite, I advise extreme caution in doing so. That being said, it can really save you a ton of time.
Okay. Another question is, how effective has your experience with hashtags on Facebook been?
With hashtags on Facebook, I don't think hashtags on Facebook work at all, not really. Because, and allow me to demonstrate why. So this is my Facebook feed. For starters, people don't really, I mean, now granted, this is just my Facebook feed, but people don't really use hashtags. And I suspect I'm not the only one whose Facebook feed looks like that. There's just not a ton of hashtags. And when you do click on a hashtag, you're only going to see your friends or people whose privacy settings are open. I think hashtags are much more effective on something like Twitter or Instagram. I would add, I think local hashtags are particularly effective for chambers of commerce. But generally speaking, I don't think hashtags on Facebook are really all that great. Now, somebody else just tweeted me a question. Is there ever a time when a chamber can go overboard with their social media? Generally speaking, I think the only time that that really happens is if somebody overdoes it with one particular network. The lifespan of a tweet is like 20 minutes. So it's not really possible to tweet too often unless you're live tweeting an event and people get tired of it. But you can overdo it with Facebook. And if that happens, people not only will unlike your page, but your tweets won't show up in their newsfeed. Facebook continues to change their algorithm so that not everything shows up, and that if you want to guarantee that an upload that you made gets in front of a variety of people, you have to pay for it. Now, that's Facebook's way of making money, and kudos for them. They've become gazillionaires because of it. But if you overdo it, you're going to limit the very limited hits you already get from your Facebook page. And that's really the big way that you can overdo it with Facebook. So, other questions?
We have a question on strategies for promoting events through social media. Do you have any tips or advice on that?
The more multimedia you make it, the better. Facebook allows the creation of an events page. I think that's a good central hub. I will add that I think event pages have been around on Facebook almost since Facebook's inception. And they're kind of spammy. I mean, really, think about it. When you get invited to a Facebook event, do you pay attention to it? Probably not. I don't think most people do anymore. Now, what is useful is if you reinforce it over multiple social media channels. So you tweet about an event, and you link maybe to the registration page as opposed to your main Facebook page. On Facebook and Twitter, you tweet events from the previous years, pictures. If you create a hashtag for people who are at the event and then advertise the hashtag in all of the event material as well as at the event itself, that's a good way of promoting it. When I used to work my Chamber's annual lunches, we had a promotion at the beginning of every event. We got a sponsor to give baseball tickets to our local minor league stadium, and they had to ask a question that was related to the brand, answer a question that was related to the brand that was sponsoring, and tweet us the answer using the appropriate hashtag. So that got the hashtag out there, and it got people talking, and it got more people following us. So I think integrating social media into live events is great, especially for younger events. You create for events targeted towards younger audiences. You create a hashtag for an event. You have people Instagram photos or tweet photos to that hashtag. That's another thing, useful thing too. So in other words, with events, the more multimedia you get, the better.
Okay. Now we have a question on LinkedIn. What kind of things can be posted or would you recommend be posted or on LinkedIn, or how would you use that?
Maybe this is just me, but I hate LinkedIn for Chambers because you run a LinkedIn group and you automatically integrate. You can make it so that anytime you do an update, like a Facebook status or a blog entry, it automatically integrates to LinkedIn. Job openings are great to share on LinkedIn since that's half the reason people use LinkedIn anyway. My problem with LinkedIn is that it's so blatantly like, I use LinkedIn to make more money. And what a lot of members wind up doing if you create a group is spamming the group. And typically you want to try to keep restraints on that. When it comes to LinkedIn, you create a group, you use it for kind of similar purposes to Facebook and whatnot. But I just think other networks are more useful. I really do, even for a Chamber of Commerce, because people just overuse and abuse LinkedIn, and particularly Chamber groups. That's been my experience with it anyway. Maybe others have had different ones, but I never liked LinkedIn for Chambers.
Okay. Mike, what are your thoughts on advertising or boosting posts on Facebook? How important is that?
Well worth it. I think Facebook ads are well worth it, specifically because they are just so targeted. You can integrate your Facebook ads so that, or you can make a Facebook ad so that it's hyper-targeted at a certain specific individual and at their demographics based on previous web pages that they've gone to. You see this PayPal ad right here in the bottom of my feed. The reason that came up is because in the course of selling my book, I just ordered a Square mobile payment device, and PayPal is smart enough to know what website, well, not smart enough, PayPal is hooked in with my web browser, knows what websites I've gone to, and it's like, hey, don't order Square, look at us, look at us. I think that they are so effective precisely because they can be so targeted. You can target Facebook ads based on other pages that people have liked, based on other local chambers of commerces, or if somebody has liked your local tourism or economic development page, you can target an ad telling them to like your page and get more information that way. I will say, typically, if you're going to pay for an ad that increases likes, you want to make sure you have a strategy behind that. You could then, so let's say you run a campaign for an LGBT council that you run within your Chamber of Commerce. Let's use that as an example. That's pretty easy to target. You can target somebody by where they live and based on relationship status and looking for. You get that person to like your page. Then you can, within your page actually, and let me show you folks an example. So this is my state representative page. You can then, within that page, target a Facebook update so that it goes to an audience that you are specifically selecting, gender, relationship status. And given how hard it is to get somebody to like your page to begin with, this can be an incredibly useful tool at making sure that good information gets in front of the right people. Paying for ads is definitely a good thing. You always want to make sure that you're targeting the ads appropriately. and that once you get somebody to like your page, you know what you're going to do with them. You know what you want them to do next, be it join the chamber, attend an event, buy this great new member benefit. Whatever you're going to do, make sure you have a total strategy.
Okay, Mike, we have a question on use of videos. They want to know whether you know of any chambers who are making particularly good use of videos, and then also what kind of editing software you would recommend.
There's editing software kind of comes standard at this point. There's a Windows Filmmaker. Let me see here. There's a Windows Filmmaker on that comes standard with any new computer now. It's actually pretty easy to use, and I would certainly recommend it. Off the top of my head, I can't think of any chambers that are doing a particularly good job with it. But what you should, if you have any professional videos that are being made at this point, you should automatically be uploading them to YouTube and to Facebook. And I would say upload them separately to both networks to try to enhance your exposure.
We had a question on something called Sprout Social. Do you recommend using Sprout Social or some other content?
I have heard of that. That sounds familiar. Let me just remind myself. Sprout Social. If I'm not mistaken, Sprout Social is similar to Hootsuite. And I could be mistaken about that. Sadly I don't remember. Oh no. Okay. Sprout Social is, if I'm not mistaken with this, and there's other services called like Social Bro, it can give you a lot more of a detailed analysis of your social media, as well as help you find followers and get other people to follow you. Never a bad thing. Definitely not a bad thing. And it can really help. If you're going to invest a lot of time in Twitter, something like Sprout Social can be extremely useful. But again, there's other versions of Sprout Social out there. There's Social Bro. That's the other one that comes to mind. And I think there's more. But keep an eye. There's other ones that you can use as well. It's worth using if you spend a lot of time on this.
Mike, so we have a question about hashtags in Twitter. So how important is it to use a hashtag in every Twitter post? Because when you're limited to in characters, it's sometimes hard to get your message across and include a hashtag.
It actually is important. Typically, when it comes to Twitter use, as you can see, a ton of tweets really do have hashtags. I will also add, and here's my home feed, I will also add that tweets with hashtags, pictures, links, or videos do much better, get more impressions and more engagement than just plain text tweets. So adding a picture, a video, a link, or a hashtag is a good way of getting your tweet to be engaged with more. I definitely think it's worth it if you can fit it in at all.
Okay, we have another question about other than payments to Boost, what are the most effective ways to increase Facebook engagement?
Right now, the answer is video. Let me see if I can pull up that exact study, actually. Facebook is continuing to throttle down, actually, on its overall engagement. It's making it so that you have to pay more in order to guarantee access to your own audience. This is part of the reason why brands are shifting more and more away from Facebook and more towards things where they actually own access to the audience, like a blog or like a direct email list. As much as Facebook and social media continues to grow, things like email lists remain very relevant because you can always have access to your audience. It's completely on you. Video is the best way, and there's actually the exact post I was looking for. Oh no, that's not. I'm sorry. Well, what this post shows is how much more prevalent video has become on Facebook. If you follow my mouse there, you can see video posts are really rising on Facebook, and on YouTube they're actually ever so slightly falling. So this is a trend that I think we're going to continue to see, Facebook getting more and more involved in the realm of video. That's the best way to increase your organic impressions without actually paying to boost.
Okay, we have a couple questions on multiple people posting. One is, should we encourage as many as possible in our Chamber's office to participate on Twitter? And on another note, asks, should an intern in the office be encouraged to post or update social media? So is it good to have multiple voices, a single voice? How would you, what are your thoughts on that?
Typically, it's better to have a single voice, and I say that for a variety of reasons. First and foremost, it reduces the risk of a mistake. Secondly, you've got consistency. You know, you don't want to sound like a robot in your chamber. You want to sound like a human being. And generally speaking, if somebody's going to communicate with a Twitter account, they expect it to have a relatively consistent voice. You can have an intern make posts on your behalf. You just really have to do it with caution, because an intern will never be held to the same accountability standards as a staffer. That's also why it's very important to have style guidelines and an overall social media policy about what you can and cannot say, how you can and cannot react to negative criticism, and how you need to handle a social media crisis. My experience, and I blatant self-promotion, I literally wrote a book on social media crises, is that most of the time it's not the actual problem that gets somebody in the most trouble. It's not the actual mistake, but it's the aftermath. It's how quickly do you delete the post? How appropriately and genuinely do you apologize? Great example of one of the stupidest things I've ever seen a brand do. Some of you folks may remember about 9 or 10 months ago, maybe 6 months ago, the football player Ray Rice, that awful video came out of him knocking his then fiance unconscious in an elevator in Atlantic City. Really started a national conversation about domestic violence, and a lot of abuse victims begin tweeting using the hashtag #WhyIStayed to explain why they stayed with their abusers. Obviously, the tweets are very emotional. One of the pizza company DiGiorno didn't see why why that particular trend was so popular on Twitter, and without knowing why a trending topic was a trending topic, they tweeted #WhyIStayed because he had pizza, which obviously was a terrible thing to tweet. Was incredibly insensitive and trivialized the issue that was being very seriously discussed. I mention this topic because DiGiorno handled it the best of any social media screw-up I've ever seen. They deleted the tweet, tweeted out an explanation about what happened, and literally for the next 3 days did nothing but reply personally to angry people who tweeted at them saying, "You're absolutely right. It was a huge mistake. We're so sorry. It'll never happen again." So they took responsibility for their error. They showed genuine remorse, and they sent out personal and customized apologies to almost every person that tweeted at them. It was really remarkable how you could see somebody felt awful for a very serious mistake, but for a mistake nonetheless. So anyway, coming back to the original question, if you have multiple people tweeting of various levels of training, it increases the odds of something going wrong, and not even necessarily anything as severe as that, of course, but it increases the odds of somebody making a mistake, not replying. "Oh, I thought you were going to reply to that person, or I thought you were going to send out that tweet." I just think it's easier to just have one person tweet only.
Okay. Mike, do you know of any metrics about what time of day is the best to post?
I have seen multiple presentations of people who say, "Oh, the best time is this, the best time is this." The only real way of determining your best time to post is by using something actually like Social Bro. That'll give you a good idea. Or you go to analytics.twitter.com when you are logged in to, and you have to spell it right, I will add that, analytics. If you go to this analytics site, this will actually tell you how your tweets are doing compared to how your tweets are doing overall, which tweet you send out is getting the most impressions. This is my highlights for March 2015, how many times I've tweeted. Now, they literally just redid this page, so I'm not too sure where it actually is, but there should be a way to export your tweets so that you can see it in an Excel spreadsheet. You can then see your top tweets and what times they were sent out at. So you could actually determine for yourself which times are best. Every audience is going to be different. That's why I always kind of ignore studies and say, oh, the best time to tweet is 5 o'clock on a weekday. Well, maybe that is for one audience, but every audience is different.
Do you know of any chambers that are doing social media correctly or using it to its fullest?
I hope my old one is, but beyond that, no. If I'm not mistaken, actually, ACC measures social media among chambers, because I remember my old chamber, after I left, got an award for being a top 20 chamber in the country. I don't know how some of the others do. I wish I could give you a better answer than that, but unfortunately, off the top of my head, I'm not quite sure.
Okay, let me see. Back to LinkedIn. It says, if you do choose to do LinkedIn, do you recommend a group or a company page? It seems like it's redundant to have a chamber group as well as a business page on LinkedIn. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree that it is redundant. I think a group is better because I think it's easier for somebody to join a group in a sense than to join a company. A group gives the impression that it's like, hey, we're all in this together and we're all equals, whereas a company page seems a little bit more is typically more company-centric. So I think a group is a better way to go. And I see somebody just tweeted me, have I heard of Chamber using social media ambassadors to increase exposure? That's actually something I was going to work on when I left, around the time that I left my chamber. I think it's a great idea because then you can have people specifically do membership recruitment and retention digitally. Maybe you've got a younger person for whom that's their business, and doing that would be a good way of gaining additional personal exposure. I think that's a great way to go. I definitely do. It's a relatively new thing. I don't know how many other chambers actually have digital social media ambassadors, but I totally think it's worth it. Absolutely.
Okay, what do you think of CyberDust? Is there any use of that for chambers?
I don't know what CyberDust is, so that's a really easy question to answer. How easy was that? No, I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with it.
Okay. What are some of the best practices for promoting sponsors of events via social media channels?
Anytime, it's very easy at this point to actually fold in existing sponsorship agreements with social media. So say anytime you discuss an event, if somebody's above a certain sponsorship level, you can make sure that you mention, like, hey, we're doing our annual economic outlook sponsored by Capital Blue Cross. You make sure that if somebody's high enough in an event, you will always promote them, maybe give a link to their website. You can, on an event page on Facebook, have them record a welcome video that you then post on the page. Make sure that you use their logo on any relevant material. So there's a million different ways that you could try to fold in sponsorship agreements, and I think it's I think that you could start with a few of those things and go from there.
What do you say? Take a look. It's hilarious.
What's it on, though?
On his Facebook page.
Make sure everyone is muted their phone. Thanks a lot. Let me see. You mentioned investing in Facebook ads. What are your thoughts on Twitter and Pinterest ads?
Not as good a bang for your buck, and not because I mean, for all intents and purposes, everybody's on Facebook right now. So if you're looking for the broadest, for the most amount of people in the most targeted demographic, Facebook is definitely where you want to go. Twitter and Pinterest can be useful, but I think Facebook is much better right now.
Here's an interesting question about blogging. It says, we're getting ready to start a blog and use ChamberMaster. Do you suggest we use their standard method, or would you get a creative template?
I am not as familiar. I vaguely remember hearing about ChamberMaster, so I'm not too sure what it looks like. But I would say, and I think this applies to any social media in general, start slow. Start with whatever they give you. As you get more comfortable with the medium and with how to manage it, you can expand and do things that are a little bit more creative and more risky, but start with the defaults and slowly move up.
Okay, here's another question about video. What's the best way to find video, either about or produced by your members, for reposting on social media?
Ooh, that's a good one. best way to get content from your members is to ask. At your net, you could send out a blast email, put something on your website, certainly put it on your social media. That's probably the #1 way you can get it. But make sure that you actively solicit it. Then the more you share other people's content, the more your members are going to go, wait, I want to do that too. And so it'll kind of snowball like that. But best way of getting anything is to ask. Okay, we have a little bit of a follow-up on a previous question. One of our members said that the Amarillo Chamber won a grand award, an ACE award from ACCE in 2013 for social media. So maybe take a look at their social media. So thanks for bringing that up. What are your recommendations for chambers that have several functions like membership, policy advocacy events in terms of Twitter handles? Typically stick with one unless you are a very sizable chamber. And it would be easier to have multiple accounts that you can then either have one or, if you have multiple accounts, it's okay to have multiple people managing them. I only think it's really worth it if you have a big chamber and can attract a sizable audience. Typically, you want to make sure you know why you're on social media. You're on it to serve your members, to gain more new members, etc. I think advocacy is the one that makes the most sense to potentially have your own to have its own social media handle, because you could turn some people off with your advocacy, so you can allow them to do whatever they need to do while still maintaining your own independent social media website or social media handles.
Okay, here's a question about how many photos to post. So if you have an event, such as including a monthly recurring event, how many photos is too much? They have, is 38 photos too much? Or how many is a good number if you're going to use photos?
It's not so many that there's too much. I mean, people will just stop looking. As much as it is making, most of the time, the way that photos, if somebody uploads an album, let me go back to my Facebook page. If somebody uploads an album into, onto Facebook and it appears, and I just need to try to find an album. When it appears, the first 3 or 4 pictures that appear are the most critical. You always want your first pictures that pop up to be the best looking ones so that people will click and keep clicking. Just make sure that your best ones go first, and from there you don't have to worry about it. Obviously I can't find a photo album right now. That's clearly.
Okay, so just put the best photos first.
That's photos first, absolutely.
Okay. And then another question about Facebook posts, and you may have covered this in a previous response, but do you have a limit on how many posts per day are ideal, or would you never post more than once a day, or a certain number of times a week?
I think no more than 2 or 3. But again, since so few people are going to see a Facebook post that you actually make from your business page anyway, it's more than posting a certain amount of times a day. You want to try to, if a post that you want to make isn't meant to have broad appeal, target it towards a certain audience, because that means that the people who will see it are more likely to be affected by whatever it is that you do post.
Okay. Would you recommend linking Instagram posts to your Twitter account?
No, not directly, or not automatically. There's a way that you can actually link whenever you make an Instagram post. You can click a button so that it posts to your Twitter account. This way you can make sure that if you have a particularly long caption or multiple hashtags, if you don't want to make that post go automatic, it doesn't have to. But you can make it so that you just click the button, and when it's appropriate, the same thing will be pushed that way. So don't make it automatic. Just link the account so that you have the option to do so.
Oh, okay. We just had a couple things. One of our participants loves Sprout Social. They say it's similar to Hootsuite, gives you good analytics, and there's a discount for nonprofits. And it aggregates your Twitter feed. So there's some info there. And then there was a question about making sure, there's been a variety of questions from folks wanting to know whether we'll have your presentation slides available to them. And absolutely, yes, we will post them on our ACC's website. You'll actually be able to access both the recording and the slides from our home page and then from our ACC University page. So look for that, as I said at the beginning, within 24 or so hours. It'll all be there, and as you can see, Mike's contact information is on the last slide as well. And I think that is all of the questions.
All right. Well, thank you folks very much. I really enjoyed this, as always.
Yes, thanks everyone. We really appreciate your participation and your great questions. And have a wonderful afternoon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.